Hello everyone, this is Dr. Vivek Kumar from Department of Mechanical Engineering, School of Technology, Pandit Deen Dayal Petroleum University, Gandhinagar. In last video lecture, I have illustrated some advanced method of concept embodiment used in product design and development process. We have discussed system modeling, embodiment checklist, and failure mode and effect analysis. In this video lecture, some aspect of design for manufacturing and assembly will be covered with reference to product design and development process. Design for manufacturing is a process of designing part, components or product for ease in manufacturing. The end goal of this exercise is to make a better product at a lower cost. This is done by simplifying and optimizing and refining the product design process. The acronym DFMA stands for Design for Manufacturing and Assembly, is also referred or interchangeably used as DFM, that is Design for Manufacturing. Actually, the Design for Assembly is a subset of Design for Manufacturing. Ideally speaking, DFA needs to be done early in the design process, that is, well before the tooling has begun for the manufacturing of a product. In addition to this, DFM needs to include all shareholders or the stakeholders, that is, engineers, designers, contract manufacturers, mold builders, tool designers, and material suppliers. The intent of this cross-functional design team is to challenge the design at all the levels. These levels can be read as individual component, subsystems, whole system, and at the holistic stages of product design. This will ensure that the design is optimized and does not include or embedded any unnecessary cost. As the design progresses throughout the product life cycle, changes become more expensive and more difficult to implement. Early DFM allows design changes to be executed quickly and more efficiently at the least expensive location. 5 principles of design for manufacturing are usually kept in mind before conducting the DFMA process. These are process, design, material, environmental and operating condition, and compliance and or testing. So 5 design principles are used for performing design for manufacturing. The first design principle is process. The manufacturing process related or selected must be a correct one for a part or a product. One should use advanced and costly process like injection molding when we are manufacturing the part in large numbers, that is in several legs. It is always economical to use conventional method for manufacturing the product when the production number is lying in the range of few hundreds to few thousand. The next design principle is design. The actual drawing or the part of a product has to be conformed with available manufacturing processes. Discuss your design with your manufacturing team or contract to ensure this. Otherwise, cost of implementing the design would increase. Some examples are simple and smooth transition from thick to thin features in a drawing. Also, you need to apply lesser number of the undercut in your design. Tolerance limit should be specified as per the available machine accuracy, etc. This reduces the manufacturing cost associated with a product. Next principle is material. It is important to select appropriate and correct material for your part or product. Before specifying material for product, check for important properties which can be mechanical, optical, electrical, resistance to fire, or thermal properties as necessitated in application in which the product will be used. Discuss the material with your contract manufacturer also, who might also have access to the existing material. This would help you to get lower pricing for the materials. Next principle is environment. Your part or product must be designed to withstand the environmental condition in which it should be used. Consult with your client to discuss the operating conditions, that is load and speed, and environmental conditions, that is temperature and pressure, to which the component will be subjected when it will be used. Last principle is compliance or testing. All product must comply with certain safety and quality standards. Sometimes government regulations, third-party standards, internal or company-specific standards are applicable to the product. Design for manufacturing is an interdepartmental practice of product design and development process. DFM requires information from all members of the product design and development team, as well as information is also sought from outside experts. In addition to product designers, informations are required from manufacturing engineers, cost accountants, and production personnel. Therefore, a team-based workshop needs to be conducted to facilitate the integration or sharing of views required for conducting DFM. DFM utilizes information falling under following categories. The first is information from sketches, drawings, product specification, and design alternative. Secondly, information can also be required from production and assembly personnel or processes. And lastly, estimate of manufacturing cost and production volumes are required for conducting DFM. DFM is performed throughout the product design and development process. However, much more focus is provided in the starting phase, where it is comparatively easy, economical, and less time consuming to implement the design changes. However, during initial stages, cost estimate of producing the product are highly approximate. During the later stages, that is after concept testing phase, the cost associated with individual components, sub-assemblies, machining process, labor, etc. become more clear. Application of DFM is a 5-step iterative process. DFM starts with an estimation of the manufacturing cost of the proposed design. This helps the design team to decide which component and sub-assemblies are most costly in the existing design. The design team look into key areas to reduce the cost of selected component and assemblies. This process is iterative and continue as long as the product performance is improving at a lower cost. The process can even continue up to the start of pilot product production. Once the design is accepted, any further modification in the product are considered to be formal engineering changes or become part of the next generation improvement of the product. The first step in DFM is to estimate the manufacturing cost. The estimate of manufacturing cost is taken by considering simple input-output model of a manufacturing system. The input to the system are raw materials, purchased component, employees' efforts, energy, and equipment. The output are finished product and waste. Manufacturing cost is the sum of all the capital invested for the input to the system and also cost used for the disposal of waste produced by the system. Manufacturing cost is defined as unit manufacturing cost. It is obtained by dividing the total manufacturing cost for a quarter or a complete year to the number of the units of the product manufactured in the same time. This figure categorizes the component of manufacturing cost in three main headings, namely component cost, assembly cost, and overhead cost. The component cost. The component of a product includes standard parts purchased from the suppliers. Some of the examples are motors, switches, electronic chips, screws, etc. Custom parts are made according to the manufacturer design from the raw materials. Some of the examples of the custom parts are sheet metal work, frame or structure, aluminum bar, etc. Some custom components are also made by manufacturer in their own plant, and some are also made by subcontracting to other firms. In the custom part, the cost is associated with the raw material, processing, and tooling. Next one is the assembly cost. All bought out standard and custom components are then assembled in the manufacturer plant. The process of assembling always leads to the labor cost and may also results cost for equipment and tooling. The last cost as per this diagram is overhead cost. Overhead is the category used to calculate all other costs. It is divided into two groups, support cost and indirect allocations. Support costs are related to material handling, quality assurance, purchasing, shipping, receiving facilities, and equipment and tooling maintenance. These are the support system required to manufacture a product. These costs depend upon the design of the product. Indirect allocation are the cost of manufacturing that cannot be directly linked to a particular product, but that must need to be paid. For example, the salary of the security guard and the cost of maintenance of the building and the grounds or the shop floor are indirect cost because these activities are shared among several different products. Such cost cannot be directly allocated to a specific product. The model for categorizing manufacturing cost discussed in the previous slide does not include any cost for transporting the finished goods. Manufacturing often occurs at a location which is at a great distance from the eventual customers. It is very easy to estimate the transport cost. Most goods are transported overseas using standard shipping containers, which could hold about 70 cubic meters of a cargo. The cost of shipping a container between Asia and United States is roughly $6,000. Hence, a shipping cost rate is $86 per meter cube. The air and inland transit costs are based on combination of weight and volume which are easily available in a specific country. Another way to categorize manufacturing cost is fixed cost and variable cost. Fixed costs are those that occurs in a predetermined amount, regardless of how many units of the product are manufactured. Purchase of production machines, tool, factory, land and buildings are some of its examples. Variable costs are incurred in direct proportion to the number of the units produced by a factory. Examples are cost of the raw material and assembly hours. In most of engineering goods, the cost of purchasing component are the most significant component of the manufacturing cost. There are several strategies for minimizing cost of purchase component. Some design rules are used to guide DFM for cost productions. First rule is to understand the process constraint and cost driver. Some components are costly as the designers does not understand the capabilities, cost driver and constraint of the production process owned by a company. For example, a designer may specify a small internal corner radius on a machine part. It is provided to relieve stresses concentration. Sometimes the stress concentration is not significant in this part of the product. However, creating such a feature requires an expensive electro-discharge machining (EDM) machining operation. A designer sometimes also specifies dimensions with excessively tight tolerances without considering the difficulty of achieving such accuracy in production. In such cases, the best approach is to work with the people who deeply understand the production process. These manufacturing experts will provide idea based on their experience how to redesign a component to reduce the production cost. Second rule is to redesign component to reduce processing step. The product should be redesigned so as the production process becomes simple. Reducing the number of the step in part fabrication process generally leads to reduced cost. For example, the interiors of aluminum frame should not be painted if they are not visible to the user of the product. Also, encourage a net shape fabrication process that produces a part with its final geometry in a single manufacturing step. Typical examples of such processes are molding, casting, forging and extrusion. Such products require minor additional processing, example drilling and tapping, after performing these net shape fabrication processes. Next rule is to change the appropriate economic scale for the production of part. The manufacturing cost of a product drops significantly as the production volume increases. This phenomenon is known as the economics of scale. Total cost of producing a product is a sum of fixed and variable cost. The total cost drop with respect to increase in production volume as occurs because as fixed costs are divided among more units and variable costs become lower because the firm can use more efficient processes and equipment while producing the production or the product in large number. This figure depicts variation of the total cost versus number of the unit produced. Using advanced and conventional machining processes, injection molding, and the machining line will define the conventional machining method. If the number of the part produces is less than 1000 units, then the conventional method or the machining line should be preferred in the manufacturing of the component. The next rule is to use standardized component and processes. Standard components are the one which are common to more than one product. The standard component can be developed within our own firm or can be purchased from an outside supplier. Use of 3.8 liter V6 engine by several GM cars is an example of internal standardization performed by the General Motors. The use of a common 10 mm SHC, that is socket head cap screw, across several manufacturers is an example of external standardization. The standard component unit cost is always lower than if the component is used in a mass scale. The last rule is to adhere to black box component procurement. Japanese auto industries use black box supplier design approach to reduce component procurement cost. In this approach, the internal design team provides a supplier with only black box description of the component, a description of what the component has to do and not how to achieve it. The vendor design or select the component itself for its minimum cost. It relieves internal design team of the responsibility to engineer and design a specific component. Third step is to reduce the assembly of the cost. Design for assembly is a subset of design for manufacturing. It involves minimizing the cost of assembly. In most cases, assembly cost as compared to manufacturing cost contribute relatively small percentage in the total cost. Designing a product for ease in assembly yield lesser number of the parts, which reduces manufacturing complexity and reduce support cost along with a reduction in the assembly cost. Some guideline principles are useful for conducting or to perform design for assembly. The first is DFA index. This concept is useful in determining what drives the cost of assembly. It is a ratio of theoretically minimum assembly time to the actual estimated assembly time of the product. It is defined as a ratio of theoretical minimum number of the part divided by estimated total assembly time and multiplied by a factor of 3 seconds. The component falling into minimum number of the parts are parts having relative motion within an assembly. That is the part having material different than that of the assemblies, and parts which needs to be separated from assembly for performing the maintenance and the repair work. The 3 seconds in the numerator reflect the theoretically minimum time required to handle and insert a part that is perfectly suited for assembly. Ideal part is one which require no particular orientation or demand no special insertion effort into the assembly. Next principle is to use integrated parts. If a part does not qualify for the DFA index criteria, then it is a candidate for physical integration with one or more other parts. Integration means producing special design features such as grooves, wedges, or sleeves on the surfaces of two parts. These features will make the assembly or interlocking process smooth. Integrated parts are often less expensive to fabricate. Next principle is to maximize ease of assembly. The ease in assembly can be achieved by using parts that have combination of following characteristics. First one is part is inserted from the top of the assembly. This is called the Z-axis assembly. By using this technique, we can avoid inverting the assemblies. Here, gravity helps to stabilize the partial assembly, and the assembly person can also visualize the assembly location very readily and easily. Second is part is self-aligning. Part that require fine positioning or assembly require slow and precise movement of the part by the assembly personnel. If part and assembly can be designed to be self-aligning, then fine and precise control is no longer required by the worker. The most common self-aligning alignment feature is the use of chamfer or groove on the end of a peg or a conical widening at the opening of a hole. Third is part does not need to be oriented. Part requiring correct orientation such as screw require more assembly time than part requiring no orientation such as spare. If possible, prefer such part in product assembly. The next criteria is that part requires only one hand for assembly. These characteristics relate to the size of the part and the effort required to manipulate a part. Most of the time, parts requiring one hand to assembly require less time than the parts requiring two hands. Such parts also require less effort and time during lifting and assembly through a crane, overhead crane. The last is that the part does not require any tool. Assembly of some part always require tool, such as attaching snap rings, spring or cotter pins. Such parts generally require more time than those that does not require any tool. Last principle is to consider customer assembly. Customers may complete some of the product assembly by themselves. It enables use of already packed part purchased directly from a vendor company. This could save considerable assembly time. However, it requires a great deal of designing as the product now to be assembled is assembled by an inexperienced customer, many of whom will ignore the direction provided for the assembling process of a product. Next step is to reduce the cost of supporting production. The cost of supporting production are associated with keeping inventory of parts, component, cost of supervision, and human resource management. By minimizing the number of the component, cost of component and assembly can be reduced. A reduction in the number of the part reduces the inventory. A reduction in assembly content reduces the number of the workers required for production and therefore reduce the cost of supervision and human resource management. The cost of supporting productions can be minimized by following certain guidelines. First one is minimize systemic complexity. Manufacturing system involved hundreds of suppliers, thousands of using different parts, hundreds of people, technical or non-technical, various product variants, and different types of production processes. Such variation introduce complexity to the manufacturing system. These variants must always be tracked, inspected, and handled properly so that the cost to the enterprise or the system can be reduced. Much of this complexity is driven by the design of the product and can therefore be minimized through smart decisions. A simple scorecard is used for reducing the complexity in the manufacturing system. The team establishes a score for the initial design and strive to change this score for reducing the complexity of the system. Second guideline to reduce the cost of supporting production is error proofing. DFM should anticipate the possible failure mode of the production system. This allows them to take appropriate corrective actions early in the development process. This strategy is known as error-proofing. One type of failure mode arises during assembly is confusion regarding the use of different variant of a simple component. Example include mixed use of two screw sets having diameter 40 mm each but having different pitch. That is, one is having 0.7 mm pitch and other is having 0.75 mm. This confusion usually arises due to slightly different size, different materials, or the minor images part which are used while performing the assembling of a product. In order to avoid such confusion, a common practice is using color code to distinguish such parts. Color coding is widely used to store different kinds of gases such as nitrogen, oxygen, helium and acetylene in cylinders or the containers in the industries also. Last step in design for manufacturing and assembly is to assess the impact of DFM decision on other external factors. Minimizing manufacturing cost is not the only objective of the product design and development process. The economic success of a product also depends upon the quality, the timeline of launching the product into the market, and the cost of developing the product. DFM decision affect many important factors associated with an enterprises. A few of them are impact of DFM on development time, impact of DFM on development cost, and impact of DFM on product quality. First, we will discuss the impact of DFM on development time. The development time of a project or a product is very important. In an automobile industry, a day costs around as much as several $100,000. DFM decisions must be evaluated for their impact on development time and manufacturing cost. DFMA guidelines may create a complex system or complex part. The design of these parts and procurement for their tooling may substantially increase the project duration. The cost benefit of the DFM decision should not lead to delay in project duration. Now let us discuss DFM on development cost. The development cost closely follow the development time. The design and development team should pursue low manufacturing cost as an integral part of the product design and development process. They have to develop product within a stipulated time and budget. The last is impact of DFM on product quality. Before implementing DFM decisions, the team should evaluate the impact of the DFM decision on product quality. Under ideal circumstances, actions to decrease manufacturing cost would also improve the product quality. However, in certain cases, decreasing manufacturing cost can have adverse effect on the product quality such as reliability or robustness. So the design and the development team need to keep quality and the performance aspect of a product in mind while implementing DFM suggestions. So all the 5 steps which are used for implementing design for manufacturing and assemblies have been discussed briefly here. In the next lecture, we will apply the process of DFMA on redesign of air intake manifolds. These manifolds are designed and developed by General Motors team for a 3.8 liters V6 engine. The intake manifold is used to route air from the throttle to the intake valves of a engine cylinder. With this, I close this session. Thank you.